Welcome to Laguna Podcast, an attempt at illustrating the lives and stories from the Texas outdoors. Today I sit down with a man who found himself here through culinary arts. Coming all the way from the kitchens of the Buckingham Palace, he now finds himself in Texas's hill country, continuously pushing the limits of classic salmon and hyper-realistic fly tying. This is my conversation with Mike Morphew. With that being said, I hope I pronounced this right. I got Mr. Mike Morphew
correct,
in the chair today.
Yeah, unusual name. Yeah.
And just kind of before I get into it, I think it's funny how you and I met. It was at Troutfest literally 4 days ago, and I walked into the fly tying area, which is kind of like away from like the main kind of concessions, and in the back of the corner, I saw you just kind of sitting there minding your own business, and you had all these really cool like frames up, and in the frames they were all collegiate themed, and they had these really beautiful salmon flies that were the college like colors and stuff like that. And I immediately bought one as a gift for my roommate because I thought it would have been perfect. And then that's when you told me you're a brief synopsis of who you are, and can basically convince me within 47 seconds to want to sit down and do something like this with you.
Okay, that's very kind. Thank you.
So with that being said, I would like for you to leave your contact information right now, your phone number, your email, and your Facebook handle, because since you don't have an Instagram, I won't be able to tag you in this. But I do want people who are interested in this, when I put pictures of the other stuff, if they want to buy it, that way they'll know how to reach you.
Okay, that's fine. Well, my full name is Michael Morphew, but I go by Mike Morphew, and that's Morphew.
Mm-hmm.
My phone number is 512-740-1662. And my email is all small case, and it's mikemorphew@hotmail.com.
Perfect. Okay. So now that that's out of the way, just run me through the very beginning. Because I mean, someone who's taken this amount of care and like just passion in the technique of tying flies, I think has to have a lot of love for the sport or something along those lines. So I'm curious as to what the progression was to get you to this point, starting from your first real memory in the outdoors.
Okay. I don't know if my first memory outdoors, but my first memory of fishing, I can remember it well because I couldn't find anybody in my family going back generations who ever fished. So my parents never, always wonder why does this young boy want to fish? I'm talking about 5, 6, 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously no internet, nothing like that in those days. And as a child, moved around a lot. My father was in the Admiralty, which is part of the British Navy.
Okay.
He had to move with his job every 4 years. So I lived in Singapore as a child. I lived in Hong Kong and Malta, and then different places in London. So I never had a settled childhood, which didn't worry me. The only thing that worried me was schools, because every school I went to, they'd either done what I'd done or had, so I missed out in schooling terribly. But I can remember in Hong Kong having this passion to want to fish for some reason. And my father gave me and I remember it vividly, a cane pole that was used to tie up beans, like just an ordinary gardening piece of cane.
Oh, okay.
Not a rod, not a pole.
Yeah. Yes.
He tied some string on it, and on the end of that, he got a little safety pin. You call it a little safety pin. Opened it up and put some bread on it, and that was my first fishing pole.
Tinkara rod.
Yeah, literally, yeah. So that was it. I mean, that age. But getting back to what started me off in fly, I started time flies and caught my first trout when I was 9 years old in England. And the story is that I asked my father to take me to a fishing show in London, because we didn't live far away. And of course he was like, oh, if I have to, So we went in about midday, I suppose it was. And I walked in, and I just walked around a little bit, and then I stopped and amazed. I saw this table, and there was this guy there making flies. Never ever seen that before in my life. Never seen it before. So I went over to him, and the table was quite high, and I had to look up at him. And this was about 1 o'clock, I suppose. And I was so mesmerized at 5 o'clock.
This episode is made possible by our friends over at Gordy & Sons Outfitters, located in Houston, Texas, and employing a team of experienced outdoorsmen specializing in fly fishing, hunting, and wing shooting. Gordy & Sons is sure to prepare you for success in the outdoors. Next time you find yourself prepping for a weekend getaway or a bucket list trip, be sure to give them a shout.
My father was tapping me on the shoulder saying, we've got to go, you know? And this guy looked down at me and he said, you've been so patient. And all his spare materials, he put them into a bag and gave them to me. Now, I found out later, and I don't know how many listeners know this name, but the guy I was watching was called John Vineyard. And he was the most famous author, fly tyer in England at the time, many books. And his company, Vineyard and Company, still makes fly tying materials available all over the world. And that was him. So it was amazing. And I still got some of the packets of the things he gave me because I didn't want to use them. And my first fly I ever tied was, I couldn't afford a vise or anything like that. So I took my father's little woodworking vise, clamped it on a table and put a pair of needle nose pliers in it. So the needle nose pliers could hold the hook so I could tie. And that was my first vise, And the first materials I used, I scrounged some feathers out of a pillow at home because I had no feathers. Got thread from my mother's sewing box and tied a fly. Dread to think what it looked like, but I tied a fly and I actually caught a fish on it. So,
Really?
Yeah. So that was my first introduction. So it became a passion then at 9 years old, and it's still as much as a passion now. And obviously fly fishing went along with it. I had some times when I stopped fly fishing, and it wasn't because I wanted to, but family came along after I got married. And you had to make a decision, you know, am I going to be fishing away every weekend or whatever, or am I going to look after kids with my wife?
Of course. Just a quick question. What year did you get married?
I got married, my first marriage was 1974.
So you were how old?
24.
Okay, so you jumped over a lot between 9 and 24.
Okay.
I need you to back because you are a very interesting individual. I want you to kind of break it down from 9, 10, talk about what it was like, the schooling and how you, like the culinary. I want you to give me Mike Morphew, okay?
So schooling, as I said, was difficult because of obviously not keeping up with curriculum and so on. But I remember the last school I was at, which was in a place called Hayes, which is just outside London. And boys had a choice of they could do woodwork, metalwork, and the girls could do, I think it was house crafts and cooking and so on, as an extra curriculum. And I did woodwork and I did metalwork, and then I decided I want to do cooking. So I was the only boy who wanted to do cooking, so it was a bit weird. But I'm in this, as they said, fine, you know. So I'm in this room with, I don't know, 24 girls all cooking, making things, and fell in love with it.
Wow.
The first time I ever cooked something for myself was probably when I was about 6, 7, and we'd just finished a Sunday lunch at home, and just typical 6-year-old, you know, finished, they all cleaned up, went and sat down, and I said, I'm hungry. So my mother jokingly said, well, go and make something then, you know, joking. And I came back a bit later with some scrambled eggs. And she was amazed, you know. So I got a passion for it. So I wanted to be a chef. There was a little story here that in the school, the last year before we started taking exams, the headmaster would walk around the classrooms and say, well, you know, what do you want to do when you leave? You know, and they go around the class, John, what do you want to do? I want to be an architect. What do I want to be? A doctor. Morphew, what do you want to be? I said, I want to be a chef. And he said, okay, come and see me after school. And this was the day when chefs were, you know, they weren't like they are nowadays, So after school, I knocked on his door, you know, and come in. I went in. He said, you still want to be a chef? I said, yeah. He said, well, I was 15, He said, well, you might as well pack your desk and leave.
Really?
So I left school with no qualifications, nothing.
Okay.
And my parents were absolutely, livid. I mean, they couldn't believe it. But within 3 weeks, I'd enrolled in Westminster College in London, which was the premier culinary school in England.
How did you get in there if you were stripped from qualifications?
They let me in on, it was quite tough. It was a panel of like 10 people who run the school. And they just asked me some cookery questions. What was the last thing you cooked? What do you like doing? Blah, blah, blah. And you didn't need a quality. You just,
By that time, were you proficient already in cooking yourself?
No. I mean, I was 15. I was still playing with it.
But they just wanted to know you were interested or had drive or something like that.
Had the passion, yeah.
Gotcha.
So I did a 3-year hotel chef's course, which was equivalent of like a BA. So, and I left there, some really good qualifications, and went to work in some of the top London hotels, the Savoy Hotel, and I worked in the Connaught Hotel, which at the time was, I think, number 4 hotel in the world to stay and eat. Yeah, and got great experience there. Then I went to work in Switzerland for experience, and then from Switzerland I went to France for experience.
French Laundry?
No, I wish. No, that wasn't in existence. No, that wasn't. I mean, Thomas Keller, bless him, I think he's the best chef in America, by the way. He would have been my age, so he didn't have a restaurant. But I came back to London, where I was very lucky to be asked to work in the Royal Kitchens at Buckingham Palace. One of my ex-lecturers at the college had, because when I was younger at college, I did a lot of competition work in sugar work, making sugar models and things like that.
Oh, like making like hyper realistic things out of chocolate and stuff like that?
Yeah. And I won some gold medals very young.
Were they made out of chocolate?
No, they were made out of something called pastillage. Pastillage, which is, in fact, I can show you a picture later.
Yes, please.
Yeah. It's almost like it's icing, but you can manipulate it and roll it out like pastry, and it sets hard. Sets like China.
Kind of like those sheets that they put over cakes. That are like, it's not frosting, but it's
fondant.
Yes, fondant. Yes.
Like that, but it sets rock hard. I mean, absolutely rock hard. Okay. And you make something in it, and it'll last for years and years, never go bad.
Really?
Yeah. So they wanted help in the pastry, and this lecturer gave them the head chef there my name, and I had this call one day. I was in my apartment, and it. Voice said, "This is the head chef at Buckingham Palace," and I like, "Oh yeah,
get out of here, hang up the phone."
Which friend of mine is? Yeah, come on, stop messing about. No, this was the head chef. I said, "Come on, stop messing." And then really angry. This is the head chef at Buckingham Palace. I was like, "Oh my god!" So I took a step. I sat down, and I apologized. He said, "No, I fully understand." And he said, "Well, we need some help when you're free." So I thought, this is not something you want to play around with. So I said, how about Monday? This was like Wednesday or something. He said, that's great. So I started working at Buckingham Palace.
Okay, describe that first day. Describe walking in, what you saw.
Well, walking in was fun because I got stopped by the police. Where are you going? I said, I'm going to Buckingham Palace. He said, yeah, sure you are, yeah. No, where are you going? I said, no, I'm going to the palace. Yeah. And what have you got in your backpack? Knives. Not a good answer. Not a good answer, but it's true. So they held me up in this. Didn't arrest me, but they held me up in this little. I suppose like a little guard hut outside the back entrance. Yeah,
like a little holding deal.
Yeah, and they called the kitchen, and the head chef obviously said, "Yeah, check his name," and so on. Yeah. Let him in. So that was my first, my first day in the pastry, because it's really interesting in Buckingham Palace because there's 2 kitchens. There's one that cooks for the royal family, which is relatively small.
Really?
I mean, the whole kitchen is only about half as big again as this area we're sat in here.
So maybe like what? I don't know, 15 by 10?
No, more than that, because this is 21. So we're talking about 30.
Okay.
30 by 15 or something, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And there was only 4 chefs working in the Royal Kitchens.
Mm-hmm.
Further down the corridor, because all the kitchens are underground, and in Buckingham Palace they drive around underground on like golf carts. Yeah, because it's all corridors under there. Yeah,
Wow.
They've got their own post office, their own store for
what?
Well, for staff to buy snacks and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, just down the corridor from the Royal Kitchen is the staff kitchen, and it's a huge canteen.
Mm-hmm.
And there was about 12 chefs working in there, cooking for the staff. And bear in mind, any one time there could have been maybe 200-300 staff working. So they had breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it was like a canteen.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my experience at Buckingham Palace. I mean, it was amazing. Yeah.
Man, so when they have, let's say they have like big parties and stuff like that, then the main 4 chefs, they won't cook. They will only cook for the royal family, and then the other one that does for the staff will cook for guests and whatnot?
No, the staff just cook for staff.
Gotcha.
The 4 of us just cook for. So if we had a banquet of 250, it was just the 4 of us. Yeah, yeah. But it was great.
Who were your peers in that moment, those other 3?
There was the head chef. I'm trying to think of his name. He was a French guy then. Mm-hmm. And there was 2 other. One was about 5 years older than me. I think he was called Bob. Mm-hmm. And then there was another guy who'd been there a long time, and I think he was Alistair. He was Scottish. But I mean, special events. The first day there, actually, the pastry chef said to me, "Okay, we're going to make some little quiches for a party, mini quiche, Lorraine, yeah, mini ones. Need you to separate the eggs." So I'm looking around for eggs. I'm like, okay, well, looking around, and he pointed, and there's this box of eggs, 300. So I had to separate 300 eggs. That was my first job. So
as a head chef,
yeah.
Oh no, as a chef in the royal family.
So that was fascinating. So from there, I went from I got fed up with London because I'm a city boy at heart. I don't like big cities. Mm-hmm. So I fell in love with a city called Bath, and it's near Bristol. And I worked in a hotel there, and then I ended up opening 2 restaurants. Mm-hmm. And about 1980, I realized that I'd never play with my children.
Wow.
My son was 4, my daughter was 2, and running
but you still had time.
Well, 2 restaurants, you're talking sometimes 16 hours a day. Mm-hmm. So by the time you get a bit of rest in and so on, there's no time for taking children to the beach or or playing soccer or whatever.
And you were the operating head chef at both of these locations?
Yeah.
Okay, well, explain the days. How are you managing this?
Well, having good staff, competent, what we call sous chef, second in command, and running between 2 establishments sometimes, literally, driving there, making sure it's okay. A lot of it for me was overseeing, because the reason 90%, in my opinion, 90% of restaurants close quite quickly is they're not consistent. Mm-hmm. You go one time, it's fantastic. You go another time, dreadful. People don't go back, so they close. I mean, you've got to be consistent. That's why people like Gordon Ramsay, and I know Gordon from years ago. Mm-hmm. You can see I've got an autographed picture of him around the corner.
I want to see it in a minute.
I knew Gordon when he was about 18, literally.
Wow.
Yeah. But he is successful, and why he has maybe 40 or 50 worldwide restaurants is that he is insistent on passion. If it's not right, don't send it out to the customer. End of story. And that hardly ever happens in most restaurants. They make do. Oh, it's all right, so send it out, yeah?
Yeah.
So you've got to have that passion of everything has to be perfect. So that was my voice to my staff, if it's not fine, don't send it. And make sure everything is done exactly. Because very often in restaurants, the head chef leaves for a couple of days and they all find shortcuts.
Yeah.
He's not here, we can do that. But no.
There's subtleties, but the changes, yes.
Yeah. So that was it. So I thought there's got to be more to life. What do I want to do? So I thought the only thing I really want to do was teach, to pass my knowledge on to other people. So I applied to lots of colleges. I didn't think I'd get a job because I didn't have a teaching qualification. but a college took me on my experience. So I started teaching in a college in Wales and fell in love with it. Loved it.
Really?
So I spent 3 years there, during which time I went to university as well and got a bachelor's in teaching, teaching qualification. And
Like
teaching
teaching
degree
overall?
for
Or
teaching.
teaching culinary arts?
Teaching, it was more teaching practical things as opposed to academic.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I got my degree and started looking out for better jobs. And I moved to another college and then another college, getting better position. And then ended up in a city called Sheffield, which is about 3/4 of the way up. It's not far from Manchester, place like that.
Gotcha.
And I ended up, I was there 14 years, but ended up as director of the culinary. And the college I was at had just enlarged itself and became the biggest college in Europe. So,
and the #1 culinary program in Europe, right?
pretty much so, yeah.
Yeah.
And nowhere else to go. I mean, that was it.
You reached
14 years. So one day my phone rang and it was a culinary school in Vermont who had heard about me from an ex-student who was working over there. And they were doing this big Make-A-Wish charity event. Guest of honor was going to be Howard Dean. Remember, he was going to run for President Howard. Yeah, he was a guest of honor. So I said, absolutely. So they, would I be head chef? I flew over, wrote the menus. We did the event.
Do you remember the menus?
I know it was 6 courses. And I know one of the courses was a little filet mignon. I remember what the fish course was, a piece of sea bass. I think the appetizer was scallops on a bed of cauliflower puree with some sort of sauce. I mean, that's about all I can remember.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I'm curious, yes.
I mean, a long time ago. But anyway, I did the event, got back to England, and the school emailed me and said, we liked how you worked with us. Would you consider joining us? So, big decision. But I thought, why not? I don't think I've ever turned a challenge down, ever. And I thought, new country, new life, new start. Let's do it,
Rock and roll.
Yeah, sold everything. My wife and daughter had horses, and I mean, literally, sold everything.
What did your wife think when you were like, let's move to the States?
She was all for it.
Really?
Yeah, she was all for it.
Wow.
Yeah. So, so sold everything, moved to Vermont. I'd only been a couple of months when the CEO called me and said, how's it going, Mike? I said, it's great. And he said, you better sit down because I'll tell you now why we brought you over here. And, a bit late, but never mind. But he said, we're opening a culinary school in the Virgin Islands and we want you to open it. So that's once in a lifetime. That's never going to happen.
Might as well do it again.
Yeah. So I said, absolutely. So they shipped me off to the island of Tortola, which is one of the British Virgin Islands, and opened a school there, lived on the island for 4 years, and then got what they call island fever.
And before you get into that, tell me about the fact that you had the whole island to yourself as a fly fisherman.
People would kill for what I had. I mean, literally,
I would.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I was the only fly fisherman at the time on the island. And I could choose a bay, any bay I wanted, even on my way home from work to my apartment. I could stop off and there'd be a bay which would be full of bonefish, tarpon. Tarpon were usually a bit deeper out. Caught many, what's the shark one?
You said barracuda.
Barracuda,
yes.
yeah. And very often, if I'd got not even a bonefish, but a smaller coral type fish, as I'm pulling it in, I would get bang,
Facts.
and it'd be a barracuda. Yeah. And I could do that whenever I wanted. I mean, it was just there. So that was fascinating. And another story while I was there, because it was a British Virgin Islands, there was a royal tour going on, and Princess Anne was touring, and she was going to stop at Tortola. And all the guys, everyone on the island, government people, everyone knew me as the fly man. and they knew that Princess Anne and the royalty liked fishing for salmon and so on. And the government contacted me and said, listen, we don't know what to give her when she comes here. We have to give her something. Could you come up with something? And I said, well, what about a nice salmon fly in a presentation box? And they said, oh, yes. So I had somebody handcraft a 18-karat gold salmon hook, and I tied her a fly, called it the red, white, and blue. And when she had arrived on the island the first day, and she was walking actually along the pier to or sound of music and people greeting her and so on. And I gave this presentation box to one of the people in government, and he said, oh, no, you do it. You've got to do it. So as she approached, I went up and I did my bow and presented her with it, and she immediately opened it, and she just said, oh, this is lovely. Thank you. So that's my other royalty hint, So that was it. And I got, after 4 years, I got this island fever, which is a medical, not a medical, it's a mental thing.
Medical.
It's a mental, yeah. Tortola is a paradise island, but it's 14 miles by 4. And if I wanted to go to the shopping or movies or anything like that, I usually had to get on a plane or a boat. Mm-hmm. So 4 years, that was enough. So I told the CEO, I need to get off this island. And he said, well, something's coming up, hang on. And I was approached by a college in Virginia who were nursing and computers and so on, but didn't know anything about culinary, but wanted to open a culinary school.
Okay.
Asked if I'd
like a tech school or something.
Yeah. So I asked if I'd open a school for them. And I said, yeah, get me off this island, So I shipped off to Norfolk, Virginia. Now, in between all this, I had divorced from my first wife.
Okay.
She was on the island with me.
She stayed on the island?
Yeah. No, she didn't. No. That's a long story we won't go into. But basically, I divorced her.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Yes.
And I ended up in Norfolk and opened a school there in 2006 with 40 students. Met my second wife in Norfolk, who was from Texas.
As a student?
No, that's not allowed. But no, she was actually I was by myself, and I'd been single for a couple of years, and the realtor in Norfolk who'd helped me find a house was having a party and said, why don't you come along? You don't know anybody. And I thought, oh, okay, if I have to, I will. I went along, and I'd been married with my first wife for 30 years.
Wow.
Almost to the day when we divorced, 30 years.
Really?
So it's quite difficult standing in a party and knowing how to... Yeah. So I'm stood there in the corner with a glass of wine looking really...
awkward.
And I looked over, and there's this really attractive blonde lady at the other side looking as awkward as me. I thought, why not? So I walked over to her and I said, listen... This isn't a weird chat-up line, but I said, I was married for 30 years and I don't know how to socialize with another woman, really. She looked at me and said, you're kidding. I said, what? She said, well, I've just divorced my husband after 30 years, exactly 30 years. And I looked at her and I thought, this is weird.
This is very weird.
And, of course, we hit it off.
Huh.
And 8-9 months later, I married her.
9 months later.
She was just perfect fit.
Yeah, no, that's wow.
And she was Texan.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah. And bless her heart, she was a wild Texas lady. She was the front of everything at parties. She pulled everyone in to dance,
Really?
Unfortunately, she passed away about 7 years ago. She was only 55.
Oh.
Yeah. I won't go into that, but basically she passed away from the time she called me at work to say she didn't feel well. 10 days later, she...
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm now a bachelor, as you can tell by my house, yeah? Everywhere is fishing. Fishing rods, antique rods, and so on. So that's what brought me here to Texas. And I've loved it ever since.
Wow. Crazy story.
Yeah.
Now, we went over culinary, we went over you as an angler slightly. we didn't touch up much on the fly tying because I wanted that to be a whole separate section,
that's fine,
which
that's
is
fine.
I would love for you to kind of dive in because of what I'm looking at in front of me looks like something that I would see at a desk of an entomologist, not a fly tyer.
Yeah. Well, you're going to take lots of pictures, I know, of these. I started doing what we call ultra realistic flies about 20 years ago because I wanted something challenging that wasn't trout fly, bass fly, salmon, something different. And I started looking at pictures of these, and people started sending me actual, like a dead dragonfly, send it me in a box. Yeah. And I would take a look at it and I would say, you know what, I can,
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
I'd like to tie that. So I got into tying these realistic. They're not for fishing.
And I would never
couldn't
fish with these. Don't worry.
But I get a lot of commissions, like things like this. People ask for something in a glass case like this.
Yeah.
If somebody's passionate about dragonflies, it makes a lovely gift for them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I did one not long ago for a doctor. His wife had seen me at a show, and she said, "My husband is a doctor. He's passionate about dragonflies." And I did a frame. It was probably about 2 foot square, with some leaves and a branch in it. And I did 8 dragonflies of different colors in this for his office.
Really?
Yeah. So, black widow spider. I mean,
What were some of the challenging things? You had to figure out trying to do something so hyper realistic with such non-natural materials.
Finding materials, number one. So, my visit to a Hobby Lobby or somewhere like is different to anybody else's. Yeah. No, just finding materials. I mean, some of these, we've got this corn spider here, and I'm going to put it on the legs on this. I have to find out how to make the legs look like they're actual.
Like the actual what?
Actual insect,
Oh,
because
okay.
I try and make it as. But the legs on this are porcupine quill.
Porcupine quill.
And it make a hole in the end and then stuff in a broom bristle. Off a ordinary household broom.
Yeah.
And then you mark them, color them, shape them. Wow. But everything on these, and there's a whole box of probably, 150 flies here. They're all tied on the hook with thread. I very rarely use glue or anything. It's always, and that's because it's fly tying.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of people make things like this, but they model them.
It's not arts and craft, it's tying.
Yeah, they model it out of glues and epoxy and things like that. That's not fly tying to me.
Yeah.
Fly tying is actually tying on a hook.
Did you have to develop any new methods or ways of tying just to get these things through?
Tie most of these with something called spider web. It's Danville's thread, but it's called spider web because you can hardly see it. It's that delicate. And you have to be that delicate when you're tying, things like this stonefly. I mean, if you can't have big thread.
Of course.
Yeah. So
cool.
Because you have to be so delicate tying these, it helped my tying normally because it's such intricate work tying one of those. So when I come to trout flies, I can just oh yeah. I mean, simple trout flies, easy 20 an hour more. Obviously, the salmon flies you're looking at there, they take a long time. Some of those can be 8, 9, 10 hours.
Why do those take such a long time? But those, what's the time on those?
Long time.
I'm talking about hyper realistic for those who can't see it.
This
praying mantis, which is huge,
eating a little sedge fly. See that?
I didn't even notice it when I walked in.
So that's probably about 25 to 30 hours of work.
Jesus Christ, Mike.
Yeah. Not at once.
Yes, of course.
I do a bit and then put it away, do a bit, yeah. And I have got which I can show you when we go in my office, I've got the one fly that took me the longest ever was just under 40 hours for one fly. But you'll see it. It's a stag beetle.
By any chance, have you posted that black widow on Facebook?
I think it has been on there at some point.
So I've seen your work before I even met you. Yeah. And now it's starting to click.
Okay, I think so.
And I remember I even commented, I said, like, God damn, like, this is extremely impressive.
Yeah, so that's definitely, I mean,
Wow. I'm going to take pictures of these, and I
Okay.
want people to see this because this is something insane.
I would say if anybody, I do, I never know the word, but is it something arama? Like a display of, you know
Yes,
what I mean?
it's not Adorama, but it's something like that.
Something beginning with D, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, people just say, I want dragon, or I'd like, 3 or 4, people like Beatles,
Is it a panorama? No.
No.
What? I was going to forget.
But
Pretend I didn't say anything.
But
Okay,
you know what
keep
I mean.
going.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, things like this. This was when I was in Oklahoma, I was staying
stick
by a
bug.
lake. Yeah, stick fly. And I came out of the cabin and there was hundreds of these all over the cabin wall. And I took some pictures because I'd never seen blue on like a natural, apart from butterfly, things like that. And they had these brown leg with blue
Like
ends.
highlights?
Yeah, at the sort of knee joint.
Uh-huh.
So I photographed it and then came home and tied one.
That is unbelievable, Mike.
So it's just I just enjoy doing it. I mean, that's fun. That's all tied on a hook.
This is impressive. And again, this is a scorpion for those who obviously can't see this. This is what, maybe like 3 or 4 inches long?
About 4 inches, yeah. It's almost, it's life size, yeah.
What is the materials you're using?
It's foam, wire, thread, different thing. But again, everything is just thread tied.
Wow.
And the actual stinger,
Mm-hmm.
because there's a hook there it's tied on, you can see.
Yes.
The little hook.
Mhm.
But tied on that is a salmon hook that I've rebent to give the point.
Is that where the body comes
Yeah,
from?
part of it, yeah.
Got you.
So it's a salmon hook which gives the stinger.
Yes. And then how long is the shank this long?
That hook it's tied on is probably to that section there. But because the salmon fly goes probably down to about there.
Gotcha.
So it gives me a base to work on.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, all good stuff.
One of the things I want to talk about a little bit is your antiquing.
Yeah, my antique thing.
You showed me probably one of the first ever concepts for a spinning rod.
Reel.
I didn't even know that even existed. It looks insane. I took a picture of it already.
Yeah,
how did you get into that?
I picked that up. Well, I've always been interested in antiques. My father, when he retired, went into antique restoration, which was fascinating for me because there's another craft that I actually got into a little bit. But because of my passion for fly fishing, I thought, well, there's got to be antique fly tackle out there that I could get hold of. And so I went to an auction and bought a reel, and it was a old Victorian wooden reel, fly reel. And that started it. And every time I went to a craft fair or antique fair or garage sales, if I saw antique fly, I'd buy them. Reels. The antique rods I showed you up there, which are all cane. Well, actually, one is a material. I'm trying to think of what it is called. It'll come to me. But it was what rods were made of before they split cane. And it's up on the wall there. Fairly heavy. The cane rod I showed you was dated around about 1820, 1830.
That's unbelievable.
And every now and again, I will put a wooden reel on it and go fish with it. Because I'm fishing with something. And a lot of my flies I tie are traditional Old English patterns, dating again back to 1800s. So if I can catch trout these days with a rod that's 200 years old or more, a reel that's that old, and a fly tied with the same style that they were, and catch a fish, oh yeah. That's like the whole full circle,
Absolutely. I mean,
and that other rod is made of something called green heart. Greenheart, yeah.
Greenheart.
It's what they used in Europe to make fly rods before
cane poles.
Split cane, yeah.
Wow.
And I think in that case you took a picture, I think there's about 70 or more fly reels.
I'm looking at them.
Yeah, I mean, dating way back, and you saw the little poacher's reel I talked to you about, and so on, yeah. So the whole fly fishing thing really has been my life. Apart from culinary, the two main things in my life is food and fly fishing. So Can't be bad.
It's not bad at all. Were you someone who is more of a tire or more of a fly fisherman?
It's a tough one.
Because I see that big trout on the wall. I've seen some of the stuff, and I actually wanted to talk a little bit about those flies you showed me with no eyes.
Okay, yeah.
Before I forget, but I mean, again, I'm looking at this, and it looks like you do both quite well.
Yeah, I mean, I love the fishing. Don't get me wrong, but you can't fish every day, 24/7. You know, you just can't do it. It would stop being fun.
Yes,
in my opinion. Okay, I look forward to my trips. You know, when I go to fish with the bighorn every year in Montana. I mean, amazing fishing. I've been like 7 or 8 years in a row.
Really?
I go to Arkansas every year for the biggest fly tying event in America called Sowbug.
I don't even know that existed.
Okay, it's in Arkansas Mountain Home every year. I've been probably 10 years or more in a row, and there's this huge hall, and at any one time there's 70 or 80 fly tyers from all over the world, all over the States, tying flies for 3 days. And people visit from all over. And it's an amazing experience because you learn so much from all these different fly ties. So I do that every year.
What are some of the things that you've learned more so recently that have been maybe made your fly tying more effective? Or is there anything that you've learned recently that you've kind of implemented into your techniques?
Couple of things. I mean, not that recent, but spinning fur. You know, if you know the concept of spinning fur,
So making your own brush and stuff like that?
Yeah, and you would normally or used to tie a loop onto the hook with your thread, and then you'd open up the loop and you put your fur in it, and then you get a spinner and you'd spin it. Yeah? Yep. Well, there's a way now you don't need it. You can actually do it with your tying thread. So you pull your thread out and you flatten it in your finger, and you put a needle in it and split it. And then you put all you need to do is spin your bobbin holding the thread. Really? And that does the same effect.
I would have never guessed that.
So things like that I've learned. I actually learned that from a guy who runs a fly shop in Round Rock called Chris Johnson.
Chris has already been on the podcast.
Okay, well,
Super amazing
Chris
individual.
and I are great friends.
Really? Yeah. I'm going to send him your picture when I go edit it then.
Yeah, he'll laugh because he'll say, "Oh, not that damn Brit again." Yeah. But it's funny because his 2 kids, I watched them grow up, and at the show, I gave each of them I tie some gold kilt pins.
Kilt pins?
I'll show you them. Yeah, but they're basically what Scots use to hold their kilt together.
Gotcha.
But you can tie a really nice fly on it. And I tie some for people's hats and so on if they want them. I'll give you one before you go.
Okay, I won't say no to that.
And his kids saw it, and I gave them both one, and they were like, "Oh!" They ran off with these. Yeah. So Chris and I, yeah. So I've done a few tying sessions at the store, quite a few.
Really, over at Living Waters?
Yeah.
I like that shop a lot.
Yeah, I know. So Chris and I, he taught me that trick with the thread. So thank you, Chris. Yeah.
Who were other people maybe in the beginning of your, let's say, tying career in the professional sense that you kind of, took inspiration from or saw as peers or, bounced ideas off of, stuff like that?
I mean, quite a few really. I mean, obviously is the guy I said, first of all, John Vanier.
Yes, that was the first one.
And funny enough, I opened up we have in England called the Fly Dressers Guild. Fly Dressers Guild is a club. And I opened up a branch of that in Bristol.
Okay.
And he came to the opening. And I didn't know he was going to be there. Someone else, I think the president or whatever, asked him down because they sponsored all the Fly Dressers Guild magazines and everything like that. And he walked in, John Vaniard. And I looked.
John.
I went over to him, shook his hand. He said, "Oh, hi." He said, "You're the guys." I said, "Yeah. Open this." I said, "You don't remember me, do you?" He said, looked at me. Because I was like 24, 25.
Of course, yeah.
And he said, "No." And I said, "Do you remember that show in Victoria, in London, in 19, whatever it was? You were tying flies." He said, "Oh, yeah, a long time ago." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Do you remember the little guy stood by you all day watching you?" He said, "Funny that, because I do, because it was unusual for a little boy to stand
Find that much interest in it, yeah."
I said, that was me. And he couldn't believe it. He threw his arms around me, hugged me. And I had his book with me, signed his book, and we became friends after that.
Really?
So
I was going to ask if you had spoken to him again. Wow,
yeah.
wow.
He passed away quite a few years ago. Another mentor and a friend of over 40 years is a guy called Davy Wootton. Mm-hmm. You know Davy? Mm-mm. All right. Davy Wootton is a Welshman who was huge in England opened up. He invented things like SLF dubbing, and he was part of Partridge Hooks. He tied flies professionally for about 10 years. We both wrote for the same fishing magazine in England.
So you're a writer also?
Well, yeah, but we both wrote for the magazine. He moved to the States, I want to say it's going to be 30 years or more ago. I lived in Chicago for a time, and then he moved to Arkansas, and he guides on the White River.
Wow.
He still guides. He's my age, he guides.
Really?
But he is one of the most prolific fly tyers I've ever met. Okay. Mm-hmm. So anybody not heard, look up Davy Wootton on YouTube, or if you go to Arkansas anytime, Mountain Home, look up Davy Wootton.
Yes. Okay.
The other person some people might have heard of was a guy, again, passed. All these people have passed away, but a guy called Oliver Edwards.
See, these are names that I was so excited to do this with you because I want you to tell me this story. Oliver
Edwards, or he was known as Ollie Edwards, actually lived not far from me when I was up in Sheffield. And he was, it's worth looking at his CDs and his YouTube things. Definitely Ollie Edwards, or full name Oliver Edwards. He was the first tyer, I think, to actually tie this sort of fly, but for fishing.
Really?
Oh, he ties some of the best nymphs, mayflies. Before you go, I'm going to show you his book.
Yes.
Okay, because it's amazing. It gave me so much inspiration.
Wow.
Another guy that's passed away, a guy called Taff Price. He was a Welshman. And often at English game fairs and shows like that, I would be tying flies, and I would often sit next to him with a glass of scotch, and we'd tie flies and have jokes and fun. He's written 4 or 5 books. So they were real mentors to me.
Absolutely.
So probably those people would be the ones I stand out.
Have you ever written a book?
I haven't, but I was invited to. I've got a culinary book. I'll give you one of those.
I will gladly take one of those.
It's only a soft hat, but 50 recipes in it.
I don't care. Okay. I'm going to take it.
I haven't written, but I'll show you later. A couple of years ago, I was asked if I want to be part of a book.
Okay.
And it's called, it's over there. I can't remember. We'll look at it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
but it's supposed to be 20 or 30 or something of the top fly tyers in the world. Well, it's not. I mean, I'm not a top tie flyer in the world, but this guy asked me if I would be part of his book, and he was doing a book just on realistic.
You don't think you're one of the top fly tyers in the world?
No. I mean, I have got the gold award in America for fly tying, which I'm very proud of.
Okay, and you still don't think you're one of the best in the world?
No. I enjoy it. I love it, but I'm definitely not. No.
You're clearly better at being humble than tying flies.
No, I'm not one of the best. But I say in my retirement now, I enjoy, like I said, I got a call the other day and somebody said he wanted for his wife a salmon fly framed, but in the colours of, I always get this wrong, UCT?
Oh, a TCU.
TCU. I see I'll get it wrong around. TCU, yeah. And I've sold a lot of ones, Aggie, and Texas Longhorn fly, I do. They become pretty popular because they're great gifts.
Yeah.
Anybody who went to that school and fly fishes, it makes a fantastic birthday gift or Christmas gift.
I wonder if you could figure out a way to tie something that would represent, my area of the fishery, like Lower Laguna Madre. I'd have to send you some pictures of the environment.
Yeah, send me some
maybe
pictures,
you would basically I don't know, get an idea for the color scheme and stuff like that.
And what sort of fish you would be targeting?
Redfish and speckled trout stuff. I mean, it'd be something that I'd keep up in my room that would be basically given to my next of kin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now send me something. We'll work on that.
Okay.
We'll work on that. I do a lot of that sort of thing as commission work as well. You saw there's
Which this is beautiful, by the way. This is absolutely beautiful.
Okay, that's. I had a lot of respect. I have a lot of respect for Mary Orvis, and she was the mother or wife of the founder of Orvis Company. She started off tying flies for the shop when the first shop opened.
You know where it was?
It was up in Vermont. I think it's where the head office is at the moment.
Did you ever visit or meet her?
No, I didn't. No, unfortunately. But she wrote a couple of books and had lots of illustrations in the book. And I copy her patterns exactly as she tied them. And I tie them on actually nylon. So it looks like gut. Yeah. Because she tied on hooks without eyes.
Which we're going to get into in a minute.
Yeah. And then I make those miniature split cane rods.
Those are so beautiful.
Underneath is a little quote. I don't know if you want to read it.
Read it. I can't read it.
I can't see it.
Okay, hold on. Let me reach over and grab it.
Yeah, all right. It's a little quotation from...
it says, a selection of, what is it, MOM flies?
Mum flies.
Mum flies? Oh, that's what she called them?
Mary Orvis,
Okay. So, created by Mary Orvis Marbury. Mary was the daughter of the Orvis founder, Charles Orvis. She created a range of flies for her famous book, Favorite Flies and Their Histories. Signed, Mike Morphew. Wow.
So that makes you can lay that down. Just lay it down. That's fine, yeah. So things like that, in my retirement, I really enjoy doing, because I suppose also that because to me it's a bit of art and it's got my name on it. So, down the road, I might be remembered.
That's the goal.
Yeah. So you want to talk about the flies on the wall there?
Yes, please.
Okay. So those, I picked up at an auction once, the old-fashioned leather fly wallet.
What's that?
It's just like a wallet you open.
Like an actual, not like a roller or something? Okay.
Yeah, it has leaves in it. All the leaves were made of, believe it or not, eel skin.
Eel skin.
And they were made with eel skin back in England in those 1800s because they were impervious to water. So they protected your flies from moths and things like that. So I bought this wallet. I really only wanted the wallet because it was old and I wanted to put it in my my case over there. And when I got home and opened it, it had all these flies in it. And the flies were tied back in 18-something. And back then they didn't have eyes on hooks. They tied their flies to either horsehair or gut. And they would tie that on the hook first and then make the fly. And that whole display over there you saw on the wall is all wet flies tied then that I found in this wallet.
Wow, that is so cool. That is so cool because these are things that you don't think about nowadays.
Yeah.
It's the things that, like, for example, when you first said it, like, I was like, oh, it's just a dropper rig. And I don't fish freshwater, but I do that. I learned a very similar technique from Rick Hartman for fly fishing for flounder.
Yeah.
And so I saw that. I was like, oh, I've seen that before. Not even close to the same exact thing. That is much harder. Yeah. And it's so genius that they were able to figure stuff like that out early on, too.
Oh, I know. I mean, the reason that I do a lot of the traditional flies is, apart from the fact they still catch fish and I enjoy using them, is that I like copying what these guys came up with 200 years ago. I mean, they didn't have any of the synthetics that we have now. Yeah. The only synthetic they had was like copper wire and tinsels, because tinsels were used in the millinery trade.
Millinery trade? What's that?
Well, when you look at army uniforms back then,
yes,
it was all gold thread.
Got you, yes.
So that's tinsel. That's what they sewed it with.
Oh, okay.
And then that went into use initially in salmon flies. And all the salmon fly. If you haven't read a book called The Feather Thief,
I have heard of that book, and isn't it a true story?
Oh yeah, I know the guy that they call.
You know the guy?
I met him online. Okay, on a don't go in there, but no, on a salmon fishing forum. Used to be part of, and this guy kept popping up, and everyone was saying, "Oh, he's a young guy, but he's a really good tie. You should see his work." And so, a period of time, we talked a little bit and online, and he was exceptional tire. Really?
Really?
Yeah. And a friend of mine from England called me one day and said, "You see the news?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, I can't remember his name, but been arrested." I said, "What for?" Because I know he's going to England to play in a orchestra because he played an instrument. And he was going to play in Albert Hall or somewhere big, yeah? And
he's a professional musician also.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they said he broke into the National History Museum, which I'd been to many times, just looking, yeah? And stole all these thousands and thousands of pounds worth of feathers. And if you haven't read the book, anybody, read it. The Feather Thief. It's a really good book because it also at the beginning gives you the history of how these salmon flies came about. Because all the feathers that went into salmon flies in the 17 and 1800s all came from the hat trade, millinery. Because in those days, women wore feathers in their hats.
Of course.
And the more exotic feather it was, supposedly the more wealthy the woman family was. And all those feathers came from that. So they would go, and I'm talking about the times of wooden ship, going over to foreign lands, and they would devastate and kill every wild bird they found and bring it back for the millinery trade. And that's why a lot of these birds now are totally protected species.
And you have some of those flies with those feathers.
No, I don't actually, because modern days now we use substitutes.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Because some of the feathers that were stolen.
Have you ever tied with?
I have, but not from there.
Sure.
But, yeah, no.
I'm playing.
I mean, some of these feathers that were stolen, you see every now and again, and they weren't necessarily, they're not stolen ones, but people have got them. 4 feathers, okay? $600 and something for 4 feathers. And people are buying them.
$600 for 4 feathers.
Yeah, and I'm talking little feathers like this. Okay. Now, people that are so passionate about salmon fly tying, and they won't use any substitutes. They have to have the exact material that was used back in 1800 or whatever. Have to have it.
Yeah.
And they'll pay that to have that feather.
Who is the greatest fly tyer you have ever met?
Oof. For salmon flies, I have to say an American called Marvin Nolte. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Nolte.
Yeah, Nolte. Yeah, he was commissioned by somebody. It's worth doing research on him. Marvin Nolte. I met him in England a couple of times when he came to shows. He was asked to tie the biggest framed selection of classic salmon flies in the world, and they're in America somewhere. And if you do Marvin Nolte, do a search of him, you'll be able to see his collection he tied. And he is one of the best, I think, salmon, in my opinion.
Gotcha.
As far as trout flies, I'd have to say probably my friend Davey Wooten.
Yeah. What makes a fly go to the next level?
Ooh, difficult one.
Not supposed to be an easy question.
Yeah. Well, obviously, if it's a consistent fish catcher, number one. And I'd have to say, is it relatively easy to tie? Because you don't want a fly that's an amazing fish catcher that takes you
5 hours.
To make it. Yeah, because one tree and it's gone.
It's game over.
Yeah. So to me, it's a consistent catcher, fairly easy to tie, has movement in the water.
Okay.
Has its own movement. That's why soft hackles are so good.
Yes.
Because they're simple body, easy to tie, but boy, do they catch fish. And again, invented back those were probably late 1700. But the first fly ever tied, was tied by a Greek.
How do you know this?
There was some, I'm a mind of useless information, yeah?
I don't know. I don't know what the useless stuff is. This is awesome.
There was some monks discovered some parchments in an old monastery years ago.
Okay.
And in this parchment was a description of this Greek guy called, I think it was something like Alias or something, his name. But this was BC. Okay. All right. They still fished in BC, with hooks made out of bone and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the story on this parchment was that he was sat down one day and he was messing around with a fishing hook and he tied on some red wool on the fishing hook and looked at it. And as he was doing that, a chicken went past him and he went down and pulled a feather off the chicken and wound that onto the hook. And that's supposed to be, I think, the first fly ever tied. And his name was Alias, yeah. I can't remember the date, but I know it was a Greek. So a bit of history there.
Wow. Were you always someone who's fascinated with history?
No, not at all. No.
Really? It's just
In fact,
this
at school,
is what you love.
I used to find it quite boring. Same as I didn't like geography, history.
Are you someone who knows the history of like the culinary profession? Or like certain dishes that you're maybe passionate about? Or is it just
there's
this?
certain dishes that have great histories. Most of them I know are French ones.
Mm-hmm.
There's a French chicken dish, which is classic old style, which is called chicken Marengo. And it was named for Napoleon at the Battle of Marengo, which was a very famous battle he won. And after a day's battle, he had gone back to his tent and the chef had cooked him up, because he had his own chef, obviously, a chicken dish with all ingredients he found in farms nearby, because they're at war, so he couldn't take. So they went and raided the farms, and came back with chicken, tomatoes, an egg, a couple of other things, and created this dish called chicken Marengo.
One of the things you mentioned earlier that you were asked to the Buckingham Palace because they needed help with pastries.
Yep.
What was the dish that you were most known for?
Oh, in those days, I mean,
just in general, maybe even towards towards the end of your teaching career, maybe something that the students would look forward to learning from you, or something like that.
Yeah, I think. I mean, at culinary school, so I taught everything,
of course,
and I suppose that's where my culinary school, when I opened it in America, was different to most American schools because it had a lot of European twists in it.
Okay.
And I mean, the reason it grew so quick, I went from 40 students in 2006. And when I resigned and moved down here in 2010, I had over 650. And
How were you guys running these programs?
I mean, it was just...
You were just getting auditoriums worth of people?
Yeah, I mean, people were just signing up to do the program because they loved it. So, wow. I mean, I feel very proud of that because that would be too. Very quick growth. But I suppose I get a lot of enjoyment out of doing any pastry work.
I hate making croissants.
Tough one to make, yeah.
Damn, 72 layers.
I know. But I'm quite an all-round guy. I like doing, fish dishes. I'm happy carving a watermelon into a Viking ship. I'm quite happy with a 300-pound block of ice and a chainsaw, and I can carve a swan or a fish or whatever. So a bit of everything.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That is so cool to think about. I wonder if the things that you learn, either like maybe not techniques, but just mindsets and things that you learned in culinary school doing. I've always been someone who thinks that pastries are some of the harder things to do in just the culinary field. But I wonder if a lot of those things actually transferred over to some of your fly tying abilities.
I don't know. I think maybe
because you had to be good at working with your hands in both scenarios.
Work with your hands. I suppose the one thing is patience, because certainly with, like you said, pastry work, if it doesn't work, like if you fall off a bite, you either leave it or you get back on again. Yeah. And with pastry work, if it doesn't work, then patience. Do it again.
Yeah.
Again. And similar to fly tying, because if you're tying something like the salmon flies there,
mm-hmm.
and you make a mistake, a lot of times people will say, "Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll just carry on." The trick is to undo that mistake and do it again until it's right. And I got the same concept with
Never
food.
Send it out unless it's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And the same with my salmon flies. If you make a mistake, okay, stop.
Aside from the gift that you gave Princess Anne, Princess Diane?
Princess Anne.
Princess Anne, yes.
Yeah.
What are some of the other things that you've put together from your Vice that you are proud of?
I've done a lot of these frame things.
Yeah, I'm probably going to get a couple more from you in the coming weeks
I had
or months.
a request. Actually, this was quite a few years in England. Again, I think it was a dentist who was retiring and passionate trout fisherman, and it was the biggest one I've ever done. But I did another cane rod, but it was a lot bigger than that, with a miniature reel, and this guy wanted 80 trout flies in this frame, and I ended up tying 80 trout flies and arranged them all in this frame. So that's probably one of the biggest I've done. Yeah.
Wow. What are some of the things that you look back on fondly through your time as more of an angler? You mentioned your first fly that caught a fish.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about you being able to pursue bonefish, tarpon, permit, barracuda, and some other snapper and reef species by yourself, essentially, when you were in the Virgin Islands. But I feel like I'm looking at that big trout over there, and I feel like there maybe are some things that we haven't gone over that you would like to talk about, or maybe.
Well, another thing I love about fly fishing, apart from I want to contradict myself here, the serenity of it, but also good pals to fish with. Does that make sense?
Of course. That makes total sense.
I mean, the friends I fish with make the trip.
Absolutely.
And of course, because I speak differently to all of them, I'm the one that gets the brunt of all the jokes. And every trip, it's British Mike, it's your turn again. Yeah. But I love it. It's just good fun. So
wow, tell me about that painting over there.
The painting is when my father retired. He took up antique restoration, I think I said, and also watercolors. He's always been very artistic involved, and maybe that's where I get it from. My father, yeah. But someone took a picture of me fishing a river in England, and unbeknown to me, gave it to my father. And one Christmas, he presented me with this wonderful watercolor that he'd taken, copying the picture of me fly fishing, and put it into a watercolor. So it's got a lot of sentimental value.
It is a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
And it's cool because they're both lined up right next to each other.
Yeah.
And it is built to scale too, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Was there a moment where you realized that you were tying flies at a, above average level? You were like, oh, okay, this is something that I want to do, or, would try to excel in?
No, I don't think I've ever
thought when was that moment?
Something that I wanted to excel in, probably from, I want to say almost day one. Yeah,
Really?
As a child, when I started with the Vice I told you about, we had fly fishing materials companies in England that sold, but I could never really afford on pocket money, to go and buy a pair of J-wings or, a cape. A cape was out. Out
like
of the
a
question.
rooster cape. Yeah.
Out of the question. So
how much were they over there? I know here they're about $90 to $100. Some get up to $300.
Yeah, same. Really expensive. Yeah. And I would go to. We used to have things called jumble sales, which are like almost like thrift stores, but done by the public for church. You have things here like a bring and buy sale. That's yeah. So I used to go to all of those and look out for old hats, because sometimes the old hats had covered in like hackles.
Oh,
the old granny hats. Have you ever seen them? Yeah.
Okay.
And I used to buy them, and I've got hackles. It's like, oh yeah. Look at this, yeah. And any dropping from swan feather that was on the ground by a pond, or I would pick up, and that's how I managed to start. But I was always aiming to be good at it, because it's what I wanted to do.
Yes. One of the questions I keep thinking about right now, when you were in the Virgin Islands, were you catching those tarpon and bonefish on salmon flies?
No. No,
I
absolutely
really wanted you to say yes.
I know
I'm
you
not
did.
lying,
I know you
Mike.
did. No. I mean, the type of flies that I tie, and I tie a lot of flies for bonefish. I've probably at least once or twice a year I get a request for a box of bone flies for someone going to Belize or whatever, and I tie them up as nice, maybe 4 or 5 different styles of bonefish flies, and I only tie, apart from the big salmon flies, I only tie flies that I catch fish with.
I mean, I can catch a redfish on all those flies right there.
Well, yeah, I know you could. I actually caught and it wasn't, I hate admitting it, but it wasn't on a fly rod, okay?
Okay,
But
interesting.
I caught a 40-inch redfish with weighed 20-something pounds, yeah, on a blue crab fly that I had just tied up the day before. I wanted to try it. And I didn't have a fly rod with, but I had a popping cork. I was on the coast.
Oh,
And I
okay.
tied a leader on like that and put the popping cork, because we were fishing for speckled trout with popping cork all day, yeah. And we just moved to this bay area. And I said to the guy whose boat I was in, I said, I want to try this little blue crab I tied up.
Was it hyper realistic or was it more of fishing?
Just fishing.
Just a-
yeah,
okay.
Yeah. And he said, yeah, go for it. And I cast out the popping cork, and the popping cork just hit the ground and went like that. And I heard it 40 minutes later. I've got this redfish that,
You have a picture of it?
Yeah.
I want to see it.
amazing.
I can only imagine.
I know.
Man, it's funny because like I recently, just only maybe the last 2, maybe 3 years, through my talkings with like Hansen Lau, who's a friend of mine over in Isla Morada in that area in the Keys,
Right.
Miami.
Yeah.
And he was the one who kind of started to open my mind to the idea of even in the spin fishing, so conventional bait cast spinning,
Yeah.
to using tied jigs. So
Right.
here is a way to implement the fly fishing aspect of something that I enjoy, which is, controlling the variables, controlling everything else, and bringing it into something that I thought wasn't really consistently feasible or like wasn't really efficient or something along those lines. So yeah, it's awesome that you.
I mean, I've got a. It's actually a friend of mine devised it. It's a fly, very famous fly called the Borsky slider.
Of course.
Okay, a variation of that. Okay, which I tie. We call it the George, and it consistently on a popping cork. In fact, so much catching speckled trout and redfish that guides have asked me to tie it for them for their popping corks, and days outfish live shrimp.
Really?
And it looks like a shrimp, but it has so much movement, and it's called the George, and it's a play on the Borsky slider, but it's not a Borsky slider.
Oh, Mike, it seems like you've done a lot more than I would have even expected, and that's after talking to you for maybe 3 minutes over last weekend. Wow. Tell me a little bit about the award that you won. The fly tying award.
Oh, well, there's the Fly Fishers International do a fly tying thing. It's ongoing. It's not a competition. It's a sort of competition, but basically it's just build your skill levels. And you tie up. They tell you what flies to tie for. There's 3 levels. There's silver, bronze, and gold. And what you do is you tie up the flies they tell you to, and send them off to be judged. And they go to 3 or 4 different people around America to be judged. And then they score you. If you haven't got a bronze, they say, sorry, no, they're not good enough. Redo those ones and send them back. So I thought, you know what, why not just do it? So I did the bronze, I got that. And then I thought, well, I'll try the silver.
Oh, so you can only attempt silver if you've won bronze.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So I thought, well, let's try the silver. So spend a couple of days just messing around with the flies, set them off. Yep, silver. Okay. So I thought, well, I've got to do the gold. And I checked online, and there was only at the time about 6 people in America that had gold. I mean, there's more now, but I did it. So I thought, yeah, I want to be part of that 6. So I spent a long time on these gold flies. I mean, I've still got
How
them.
long
I've still got them.
Yes?
Yeah. And I mean, they have to be, it's ridiculous for fishing, but they have to be so perfect. The judges get micrometer things out, measuring that you tied 6 of a fly. If that is exactly the same
For all 6?
Yeah.
They have the same color, same everything?
Everything. The same length tail. And the micrometer would measure it and go back to, and if it wasn't, send it back.
Silver.
Yeah. So I thought, I got to get this gold. So I sent them in and they got sent back.
Oh, for what? What was the reason?
There was one of the flies, I can't remember the exact reason now, but one of the flies wasn't quite what they liked. And remember, you're doing, I think it's 4 or 6 of each pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So
one of like 16 flies, so 1/16 of what you sent in, at least.
Yeah, more than 16.
At the most,
yeah,
yes, at the most.
So they just, I mean, I got to know the judge afterwards, and he just contacted me. He said, "Listen, Mike, just redo it. Redo that one. Send it back." So I redid it.
He just wanted to give you the gold. He knew you deserved it.
I got the gold. Yeah. So I know there's that problem. I don't know how many now. I mean, if you go on the Fly Fishers International website, you can see tying awards, and then you can see listed how many people have got gold now and silver, bronze, and so on. So there's a lot now. But when I did it, there was 6 or 7, so I was quite happy with that.
Wow. Were you ever able to witness some of the casting events or like worlds or like distant stuff over in?
Yeah, in England. And I can't remember the name. I was quite friendly with a guy, an Irish guy, Brendan. He was called Brendan. Can't remember his second name, but he held the European distance casting for. They go quite quick, but probably a couple of years.
You know what year he lost it?
I'm going back to just a minute. 70.
Okay, yeah.
74, 5, 76, 77, something like that.
I can only imagine what the casting was like back then with rods like those.
I mean, there was no carbon fiber.
Exactly. No, there's no graphite either.
No, in fact, I have got, not the first off the press, but I've got the original Hardy Farnborough, which was the first carbon fiber rod to be manufactured, as far as I know, in England. And I've got one. I've got one, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
In fact, do you know a guy called Colin Banning?
Yes, I met Banning. I met him at Troutfest just a couple of days ago, and I won a cast with him. He wasn't able to cast with us. He's a great caster.
Keep in touch with Banning. He's a great guy. Mm-hmm. He used to work for TFO, and then he moved to Orvis. And of course, I was wearing a sage cap he wasn't happy about. But I told him once about this. Well, I've never got around to doing it, but if I remember, I'll take it next year to Troutfest. He wanted to see this.
Yes.
Because it was Hardy, made by Hardy. And
I'll send a picture right now.
The original Farnborough. I mean, yeah. So.
Wow. Well, Mike, man, we've already cleared the hour 15. We're hour 18.
Right.
Before I do my last 2 questions to end this out, is there anything else you want to have said?
I don't think so. As I said, I mean, don't inundate me with thousands of orders, but I enjoy doing these orders for people. Yeah. As I said, I suppose it's because it's like an artist selling pictures. It's not just for the money. It's the fact that, my hard work is going to be appreciated
absolutely
by somebody else. So the contact will be there. You'll put the contact.
It's already. When people listen, it'll be the first thing I hear in the first 3 minutes.
Get hold of me. I prefer texts. Trouble with phone calls is that sometimes I never know if it's a
scam call or something. So text.
So if you called me and I put the phone down,
text, emails,
but text me and say, I've just called you, and I can call you back or whatever. But that's the only issue I have. Email's good. Texting is great. So yeah, and if there's a special school or anything or college that you would like represented with a salmon fly, all I need to know really is the name, where the school is. I can research the colours of it, and then we'll keep in contact, and I can send you a picture to say where I'm at and stuff like that.
I have an idea for you actually. I want you to go through that book that I just gave you.
Right.
I want you to garner inspiration for a salmon fly.
Okay.
I want you to tie me the fly with whatever colors you see fit, whatever you feel from that book. And then I want you to title it, frame it, and be like the Laguna fly.
Okay. So
Cool.
it'll be your Laguna fly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That'd be an awesome way to kind of commend or not, commemorate. First, this conversation, but two, I've always wanted a way to kind of hang up like a reminder that the book is done.
Okay. And before we go, I want to get that book that I'm part of.
Okay, go get it right now.
Very quickly.
So, it's called The Fly Tires Art. This was what you were invited to be a part of.
Yeah,
and then
it's supposed to be
and the forward by Tom Rosenbauer.
Top 33 world's famous. I mean, I'm not famous, but I mean, it's a really good book.
And this is what your fly was in?
This is what I sent in. He just said, send whatever you want. So I sent a pair of mating damselflies.
Wow.
And then I did...
And this was the beetle you're talking about?
This mayfly.
Uh-huh.
Which is similar to this one.
Okay.
And then this is the stag beetle.
That took you 40 hours almost.
Yeah. So I was very honored to be asked to be part of the book, to be honest, because there's tires in there from all over the world, Europe, Japan, I mean, all over. Mm-hmm. So I was really
And you're friends with some of the tires in this book?
I know one of them.
Okay.
But otherwise, no. And the guy that wrote the book, never met him.
Tony Lawley.
But he saw some of my work on Facebook.
That's where I saw your work.
Yeah. And he contacted me through Facebook, and then we set it up, and that was it. I tied the flies, sent them off. He had them professionally photographed. Mm-hmm. He asked for, me to write about what the fly is and so on. So yeah, very proud of that.
Well, one of the reasons I had asked earlier if you had a book was because, you've mentioned peers in the space as well as mentors who also put out their own books. And it just seemed fitting that you would eventually follow in their footsteps, kind of like a full circle moment.
Yeah. Two things. I think there's enough fly tying books out there.
It's not about that. I don't think it's about just the fly tying books. I think it's about leaving your own piece in history.
Well, I feel that that is my...
It is. It 100% is. Don't let me take that away from you either.
So, yeah, I suppose what worries me more than anything is that, and it's a funny thought, but after I've gone,
mm-hmm.
all this there, all that history there in the case, the 70 fly reels and the rods and everything, my son's going to have them because I've already told him,
And he's also a good fly tyer.
He's not a fly tyer. He's not a fisherman. I know. So it's, nothing I can do about it.
Yeah.
The other option is just to sell it all.
Or give it to me.
Yeah. That's another option, of course. Yeah.
Hey, just let me know. I have my number. You have my number.
Yeah. No, it's been fun today. I've enjoyed it.
Likewise. Okay. So last two questions. All right.
Yeah.
First question. Looking back at everything you've done in your life, which has been quite a lot, is there anything that you wish you would have done differently in any form of the fashion, in any way that you take that question?
You know what? I've had I think, a really wonderful life, interesting. I've traveled the world, all with food.
Mm-hmm.
Food's taken me
Good
around the
food,
world.
to say the least.
Yeah.
Yes.
I can't really think. I know it must be difficult, but I can't think of anything that I would have done totally differently because, I could say, well, it was fate that I met my second wife.
Mm-hmm.
It was. If I hadn't, then I wouldn't be here now, sat here.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't be in Texas.
Wouldn't be in New Braunfels.
Yeah. So I don't think so. I can't think of anything, and I'm sure a lot of people can do the same, that I would change in my life if I had the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from maybe one thing, having a lot more money when I was younger.
Mm. Me too.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question is, as if you're talking to the next generation, kids in 12, 14, 16, who maybe might want to be looking for, I don't know, a profession in the industry or guiding or tying, or in this case, even the culinary side of the world, really. What is a piece of advice you would give them as they go into that?
Okay. Number one is don't think you can make a living out of time flies.
Mm-hmm.
You can, the people that are, but to tie flies to pay mortgage and stuff, you have to tie, 30, 40, 50,000 flies a year, more, just to pay your mortgage and bills.
Mm-hmm.
So it's soul destroying.
Yeah.
You begin to hate fly tying. And I've known several people that have started off doing professional fly tying. In fact, one of them was next to me in the tent.
Really?
Matt Bennett.
I didn't have a chance to talk to him.
Oh, Matt's a great guy.
Yeah.
Do a podcast with him. Yeah.
All right.
Matt's a great guy.
Well, you give me his number before I
Okay.
leave.
All right. Okay. He tried it. My friend Davey Wooten did. I mean, Davey Wooten, bless his heart. You know the angle poised lamps?
Mm-hmm.
He burnt out in a year about 6 of those because they melted. They got so hot with so much. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, just not an option. As far as guiding, if you're good and you pick up a good clientele that continue to come back to you, then, I wouldn't say you can make a good living at it, but you can make a living.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a place that is all year round fishing, now if you're somewhere like Alaska,
Mm-hmm.
then your fishing is half a year really.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're not going to make a living out of that.
I've had quite a few people recently, tell me that they've done seasons in Alaska.
Yeah.
It's almost like a rite of passage. I swear, almost everyone I talk to, I went to Alaska. I got it in Alaska. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's the fishing side. Yeah. I mean, the other tough thing is in fishing is to open up people say, I want to open up a fly shop or something. I mean, you ask Chris, I mean, it's tough.
Not easy.
It's tough. And again, I've known people that have opened fly shops and they've struggled because it's such a niche market.
Oh, yeah.
So I definitely wouldn't think about that. As far as culinary, if youngsters thinking about getting it, and I speak to a lot of youngsters still, and this is kids of parents that come to my cooking classes and things like that. First of all, make sure you're absolutely sure. It's not a whim because you see a chef on TV and say, I want to do that.
I saw the bear. I want to do
Because
it.
it's nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Go to a good culinary school. Pick a good one. One of the best in America is CIA in New York, Culinary Institute of America.
Gotcha.
Do the program. And then when you leave, the advice I took when I left culinary school in London, all my friends went for the best paid job. One of my instructors pulled me aside and said, go to the best place that pays the least, because the good places wouldn't. They pay least because you're working for them.
Because you want to earn your spot
and their name.
Wow.
So I went to the Connaught Hotel and I was paid half of what any of my friends were paid a week. I think at the time I was getting paid £7 a week, which is about $10 a week. Okay.
Oh my goodness. Where were you living? How were you getting by?
Well, parents were helping out, and I was living in a shared apartment. So I think I paid £2 something a rent.
£2?
Yeah.
Like that's like what, $2 or
£2 is about $3.50 to $3.50. Yeah. So anyway, but because I did that Connaught Hotel was on my resume, a bit like Buckingham Palace. So for years afterwards, whenever I applied for another job, one of the first questions is, where have you worked before? Well, I did 2 years at the Connaught. Come and see me.
Yeah, it's immediate.
Just like that. Come and see me. And then, how much do you want?
Oh. So it's just a numbers game. It's an investment.
I got the Connaught Hotel on my resume. It's like, okay, we want you,
Were you like the number one in your class? That's why your instructor pulled you aside and was like, "Hey, like, don't follow everybody else." I wasn't
number one, but he was my pastry instructor, and he was the one that mentored me through the competition work.
Oh.
So he knew I was passionate about.
So he might be part of the reason why you ended up in the palace.
Yeah, he was. He could put my name forward.
Wow.
Yeah. But talking of sugar, 1 second.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You came through Smithville.
Yes.
Way here. Yeah. And when I first moved there, my wife had found a house almost opposite the house they made Hope Floats, the movie.
Mm-hmm.
You heard of the movie?
I feel like I have actually. Yes.
Yeah, it was a real big movie.
Uh-huh.
And we lived almost opposite. And I wanted to do something because I wasn't working. I had nothing to do.
Here,
So I
sit
made this
into the microphone so the people can hear it too. Oh my goodness!
I made a sugar model of the Hope Floats movie house that was opposite where I lived in Smithville when I first moved there, in Texas. And that is all pastillage, what they call pastillage. It's basically sugar paste, but it's, I'm sure you can get a picture of that if you want.
I mean, just send it to me.
It's a scale model, all made in sugar. And it was probably about 3 foot by 2 foot high.
Oh, so this is big.
Yeah. And I took about 3 months making that because I wanted, Smithville at the time was very quiet, and I wanted to do something that maybe would attract people in to look at it.
Interesting.
So it went on tour around Austin. It went to Houston, I think. I think it ended up in the library in Smithville, but it was just all sugar.
And then that right there, you said it will essentially last forever, right?
Oh, yeah. Unless it got damp. If it got damp, then no good. But it would last. And that's the sort of things I was making when I won the competitions.
Wow.
Using this sugar paste.
That is unbelievable, Mike.
Okay.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, with that being said, you mentioned earlier, like it was, you played the idea of fate and whatnot in your life and whatnot. And I'm willing to bet that kind of somehow played in me walking into the fly tying area.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I would have never found any of this even remotely something I would want to talk about until I met you. And now I feel like I have a newfound respect for the history of a lot of the sport that someone like me probably would have never heard of or even got to experience because I was on the other side of the world. Yeah. Not to mention, I didn't get born until decades later.
Yeah.
So, wow.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yes.
The history of fly fishing is, in fact, I did a few years, I taught fly fishing at a Hyatt Regency resort, which you actually passed on the way here.
Of course, yeah.
And I did with a friend of mine, and we did for clients if they wanted a 101 fly fishing. And I used to do a very brief intro of the history of fly fishing, and then we got everyone's group to sit down and make a woolly bugger fly. First time they'd ever tied a fly, and then we'd take them out on the grass and teach them the basics of trying to cast a fly, and then we'd turn them to the pond there and let them see if they catch a bluegill. So
that is so cool.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, I mean, we're at 1 hour, 33 minutes, 23 seconds. This has been something that I am extremely glad that I had the chance to do. I'm glad that I was rushing you on this. I'm glad that I was like, hey, let's just do this like next week. Because if not, I would have been gone for a couple of weeks and stuff. And this has been beyond an honor, in my opinion, honestly.
It was a pleasure to do it. And anything that, like I said, if I can help anybody in any way, you've got my contact. Let me know. Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, we've done everything we've needed to do here. I want to see some of the history that you want to show me. So without any further ado, let's just get on out of here.
Okay. Thanks.
Cool.